저는 지금 파주에 있는 설마리 추모 공원에 와 있습니다. 오늘 여기서 임진강 전투 추모 행사가 열리거든요. 임진강 전투는 한국전쟁 역사에서 가장 치열하고 격렬했던 전투 중에 하나로 알려져 있거든요. 의미 있는 날이고 또 의미 있는 행사라서 오늘 저희 팀도 이렇게 오게 됐습니다. Let us briefly tell you about the Korean War. After the Korean War broke out on June 25, 1950, South Korean and UN forces were continuously pushed south. But they were able to turn the tide with the Incheon landings on September 15th. However, with China's participation in the war on October 25th, the situation changed again. Afterwards, both sides engaged in continuous fighting around the 38th parallel. In April 1951, all parties involved in the war mobilized all the resources they had as China's People's Volunteer Army put out the last major offensive. The fierce battle that lasted from April to June 1951 dampened the PVA's goal of driving out UN forces from the Korean Peninsula. Afterwards, a stalemate ensued with localized battles exchanging little territory. Today's memorial service is to honor those who fell during one of the battles that took place in April 1951, the Battle of the Imjin River.
His Majesty retains fond memories of his own meetings over the years with veterans of the Korean War and their family members. The King joins you in remembering all British service personnel who fell during the Korean War.
대한민국은 수많은 유엔군 참전용사들의 헌신 덕분에 전쟁의 상처를 딛고 일어설 수 있었으며 이를 바탕으로 세계적 수준의 경제력과 군사력을 갖춘 자유민주주의 국가로 도약할 수 있었습니다.
Listening to the speeches, I couldn't help but think about the battle that took place here 72 years ago.
The Battle of the Imjin River, also known as the Battle of Gloucester Hill or the Battle of Seolma-ri, took place during the Korean War from April 22nd to 25th, 1951, near Gamaksan Mountain in Paju. In the battle, British forces were joined by Belgian, Irish, Filipino, and U.S. troops. The Chinese People's Volunteer Army, or PVA, which entered the war in October 1950, made preparations for a last offensive here in April 1951. At the time, the PVA and UN troops were neck and neck in their efforts to capture Seoul. On April 22nd, 30,000 Chinese troops started crossing the Imjin River. At around 10 o'clock the same night, one PVA regiment attacked the Gloucestershire Regiment, known as the Gloucesters, of Britain's 29th Infantry Brigade. Retreating from the series of attacks, the Gloucesters set up camp on Seolma-ri Hill. However, they were surrounded by the PVA in the early morning of April 24th. The 29th Infantry tried to rescue the regiment, but failed. When the infantry themselves faced difficulty, the Brigadier General ordered the Gloucesters to escape on their own. The Gloucesters decided to retreat and began their descent at around 10 on the 25th. 3 companies went south, while 1 went north. The 3 that went south failed to escape, and only 1 company that escaped north was rescued. The 29th Infantry, which totaled around 5,700 troops, lost around 1/3 of their forces in this battle. The Gloucesters, who fought until the end, saw most of their 750 troops either injured, killed, or taken prisoner. However, their sacrifices held off the PVA's advance for 3 days, allowing the main body of troops to safely retreat and buy time to prepare for Seoul's defense. That's why the Battle of Seolma-ri is considered to be the most successful isolated defense battle in the Korean War.
Those who took part in the memorial service offered flowers containing their thoughts as a tribute. The red flowers you can see here are poppies. Poppies are symbols commemorating war veterans in Commonwealth countries. John McCrae, a Canadian World War I veteran, wrote a poem paying tribute to a friend who had fallen during the war, titled In Flanders Fields. The poppy appears in the poem, and as the poem became popular, the flower became the symbol for war veterans in Commonwealth countries. After the memorial service, we had the chance to have a short interview with the British ambassador.
Sure. Today's commemoration is an annual event which we in the British Embassy organise for the community and for representatives of veterans, together with the city of Paju and the Korean authorities. And it commemorates the sacrifice of British soldiers who took part in the Battle of the Imjin River 72 years ago today.
So how do people in UK remember Korean War?
Well, for many years the Korean War was talked about as the forgotten war because it happened soon after the Second World War. But in more recent years, I think people have come to appreciate the Korean War more and to remember the sacrifice. The Battle of the Imjin River, for example, remains the bloodiest single combat in which British soldiers have been involved since the Second World War. So it's a very significant event in our shared history. It's a very proud moment in our shared history. 80,000 British service personnel came to participate in the Korean War. 1,000 of them lost their lives. And I think it's something that we want to remember together. But one thing that's always remarkable is when our veterans do return to the Republic of Korea following their experiences in the Korean War, they're always astonished and impressed by the development of the Republic of Korea since those days. And they feel that their sacrifice has not been in vain when we look around us today at the proud, free, prosperous nation that the Republic of Korea has become.
I looked around the memorial park. It was hard to believe that a fierce battle had taken place in such a peaceful place. The names of the soldiers who had fought in the battle were written at the memorial park. 왜 이렇게 많은 어린 사람들이 죽어갈 수밖에 없었는지. 전쟁이 없었다면은 그렇게 죽진 않았을 거잖아요.
잠시 후 기념식이 시작되겠습니다. 자리에 앉아 주시길 바랍니다. 가지고 계신 휴대전화는 전원을 종료하시거나 매너 모드로 전환해 주시길 바랍니다.
We are here at the memorial service for the Battle of Gapyeong. 가평전투가 궁극적으로 서울의 함락을 막아준 전투여서 이 전투가 휴전의 발판이 됐다고 하더라고요. 그러니까 이제 한국전쟁 그리고 한국 역사에서 굉장히 중요한 전투 중에 하나죠. The service began with the sounds of a didgeridoo, an indigenous instrument of Australian Aboriginals.
(72년) 전 이곳의 끔찍한 전투에 참전하셨던 분들에게 경의를 표시기 위해 오늘 이 자리에 함께 해주신 여러분께 감사드립니다.
The Battle of Gapyeong took place from April 23rd to the 25th, 1951. 1,300 soldiers from 4 British Commonwealth countries, the UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, fought and won a great victory against 6,000 Chinese forces. In April 1951, Chinese and North Korean troops prepared for battle, mobilizing 700,000 troops with the goal of recapturing Seoul by May 1st. This is called the Chinese Spring Offensive. The first Chinese Spring Offensive was launched on April 22, 1951. After being defeated at the Battle of Seolma-ri in a major offensive by Chinese forces, the 6th Division of the ROK Army retreated to Gapyeong on April 22nd. At that time, the 27th British Commonwealth Infantry Brigade advanced into the Gapyeong area to assist the 6th Division. The brigade had 4 battalions, 1 Australian, 1 Canadian, and 2 British. During the Korean War, Gapyeong was a strategically important location. If Chinese forces captured Gapyeong, it could put the roads to Seoul and the metropolitan area at risk. And if the enemy went south using the roads connecting Seoul to Chuncheon, there was also the danger of UN forces in the Western Front being attacked from both sides. On the night of April 23rd, China's 118th Division attacked the Australian battalion at Hill 504, but the battalion held its ground in isolation, halting the Chinese advance. With large damages sustained by both sides, the Australian battalion retreated behind the British battalion on April 24th. Then, Chinese forces made focused attacks on Hill 677, where the Canadian battalion was located, from the night of the 24th to the morning. However, the 27th Brigade was able to defeat the Chinese forces and managed to hold its ground. The Chinese forces were defeated with around 1,000 soldiers dead. The number of deaths in the Australian battalion was 32, 10 in the Canadian, and 5 for the U.S. Heavy Tank Battalion and New Zealand Field Regiment. With the 27th Brigade holding the Chinese forces back for 3 days at the Battle of Gapyeong, UN forces were able to buy time to build a defense line along the Bukhangang River. It also thwarted plans by the Chinese People's Volunteer Army, or PVA, to split the front.
It was bitter, bitter, hand-to-hand fighting. Those young soldiers, so far from home, they looked death in the eye and they prevailed.
다시는 전쟁을 연습하지 않으니 그날이 속히 오게 하시고 그날이 올 때까지 우리의 수고와 헌신이 계속되며 헛되지 않게 도와주옵소서.
As the chaplain said, what could we do for the day to come where there are no longer wars? Maybe the most urgent thing to do is to remember and let others know of the tragedies of the war. I was curious how the Korean War was remembered in the countries of the ambassadors.
Well, it's remembered as an incredibly important part of our military history. 26,000 Canadians came to Korea. Many of them had no knowledge of the country they were coming to, but were keen to uphold a rules-based international order. It is remembered across the country. We have a number of monuments, in particular to the Battle of Gapyeong, with rocks from Gapyeong that mark those places. And then I should add also, about 10 years ago, the Canadian Parliament designated July 27th the National Korean Veterans Day. As there will be commemorations here, of course, this year, but it's also an important day in Canada.
So how would you like Koreans to remember Canadians' participations to Korean War?
It's a sign of the closeness of our two peoples, and we would like to think that we made a contribution to protecting Seoul in 1951. So Canadians are immensely proud to have played a role alongside other like-minded countries in being part of that piece of history.
Watching the memorial service, I thought about what kind of thoughts the soldiers from abroad must have had when deciding to participate in the Korean War.
I think we like Korean people to remember how long-standing our friendship has been. It was over 70 years ago, but it was an important thing to do, and I just wanted to add that following our experience of being side by side in the Korean War, that Australia and Korea have become really important partners, and we elevated our partnership to a comprehensive strategic partnership in 2021. Now we are working together to implement that and take further our partnership, and more recently we now are working together under Korea's Indo-Pacific strategy. The final point I just make is that I have a personal connection with the Korean War. My grandfather fought in the Korean War as a member of the Royal Australian Navy. His name was Frederick Arthur Stokes, and he was here in 1952 aboard the destroyer Warramanga. So I'm very proud to have this personal connection to the Korean War and to the defence of Korea, and I feel very proud to be back here 70 years later as his granddaughter, helping to continue to further the important relationship between Australia and the Republic of Korea.
It must be very meaningful to you since your grandfather participated in the Korean War.
It is very meaningful to me, and as I said, I feel very proud that I can come back here and play a further part in building our strong friendship and partnership.
I learned an amazing story that the Australian ambassador's grandfather was a Korean War veteran. I thought I should interview the ambassador again with this topic.
행사장에 학생들이 되게 많아가지고 여쭤봤더니 영연방 참전용사들이 76년부터 가평 지역에 있는 학교 학생들에게 장학금을 주고 있다고 해요. 그래서 그 학생들 몇 명이랑 좀 얘기를 해보려고 합니다. 몇 학년이에요? 3학년. 중학교? 아, 중학교 3학년. 다 중학교 3학년이에요? 이걸 뭘 맞춰? 여기 처음 왔나요, 다? 처음.
UN 참전용사분들 장학금이랑 편지 쓰기 해서 참석하라고 하셔서 오게 됐어요. 감사하고 존경하는 마음이에요.
저는 절대 따라할 수 없고 그런 정말 위대하고 그래가지고 꼭 그렇게 되고 싶다고 그렇게 생각이 듭니다.
The Korean War veterans have been collecting their pensions and delivering scholarships to the students in Gapyeong. The friendship between Korea and the countries that participate in the Korean War seems to be deeper than I thought.
So how do you think the Battle of Gapyeong mean to New Zealand and Korea?
I think it was very important. It was an important contribution, the most important contribution of New Zealand to the Korean War. New Zealand was one of the first states to send any troops to the Korean War in support of the UN Charter principles. The soldiers who fought here in Gapyeong in particular have lasting fond memories of this place, which is shown by the fact that we give out scholarships every year to children from Gapyeong Book Middle School. And that is organised by the veterans in New Zealand. It's an ongoing thing, and it's to show the care that we have for this particular region that the veterans had when they served here.
So how would you like Koreans to remember New Zealand's participation in the Korean War?
Well, there's one very specific thing, a folk song, a Maori folk song that was originally written in New Zealand before the First World War and became something that a lot of New Zealand soldiers sang everywhere they went and served. They taught that to the Korean people at the end of the Korean War, and it was given Korean lyrics, and it became a popular Korean song. You probably know it as 비바람이 치던 바다. That is based on a Maori song called Pokarikariana. It's a traditional Maori folk song that has an equivalent in Korea. I think that shows the strong bonds between our two countries.
I think all Koreans know that song.
Yes, but I don't know if all Koreans realize that it's a New Zealand song that was taught to Koreans by New Zealand soldiers at the end of the Korean War.
We remember though Australians and New Zealanders.
비바람이 치던 바다 More than 17,000 Australians served in Korea from our Navy, Air Force and Army. Among them, my father served in HMAS Anzac and his older brother, my uncle, served in 3 RAR and fought here at Gapyeong.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
Hi. A special person attended today's memorial service. His name is Guy Black. He's from Canada.
How was your flight?
He prepared a special event to commemorate the 60th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Korea and Canada and the 72nd anniversary of the Battle of Gapyeong. He started a 300-kilometer walk from Vancouver, Canada to Gapyeong, Korea.
23 years ago, I was a volunteer at a military museum, and 2 of the persons that I helped out were Korea War veterans, and they became good friends, and they would always talk to me about the Korean War and their experiences, and through them I actually developed an interest in Korea. For the 70th anniversary of the Battle of Gapyeong, I wanted to do something big and that would draw a lot of attention, and so I decided I'd walk from the Korean War Gapyeong Monument in Tofino, British Columbia, to the Gapyeong Stone in Langley, British Columbia, distance of 300 kilometers. So I did that in April 2021. And then I came here with my friends and family this year, and I walked another 300 kilometers to the actual battle site of Gapyeong, and then further going up to Pocheon, where Canadians fought in the Battle of Seolma-ri.
So how would you like Koreans remember Canadians' participation in the war?
That to me is probably the most important thing, because all of the allied countries under the United Nations that came here, a lot of the people that did come here didn't even know where Korea was, but they were willing to volunteer to come to Korea. And a huge sacrifice from them and their families. And when I came here, I'm representing a family who lives close to where I live, and they lost a family member in Pocheon. So my strongest thing that I feel is the remembrance part of it, remembering those that died. And I know, again, the people in Maple Ridge, the 2 sisters of the man that died, they think of their brother every day. And it still hurts them.
I was able to talk to his stepson, who also participated in the memorial walk with him.
처음 이걸 하기로 했을 때, 그거를 정했을 때는 제가 어떤 의미인지는 크게 생각하지 않았었는데, 솔직히 말하자면 저희 가이 아저씨를 따라다니면서 이 이벤트가 가진 의미나 이런 거를 좀 더 많이 진지하게 생각하게 됐었고, 돌아가신 분들에 대한 어떤 예의라던가 그분들을 위로하기 위한 어떤 이런 행동에 대한 좀 자부심 그런 것도 많이 느끼게 됐고, 네, 영광이라고 생각합니다.
While attending memorial services to commemorate those who passed away during the Korean War, I thought a lot about war and peace.
근데 뭔가 한국 전쟁을 주제로 리서치를 하고 또 전쟁에 대해 생각하다 보니까 뭔가 마음이 좀 무거워졌어요.
Me too.
뭔가 마음이 되게 복잡해요.
What about organizing your thoughts into writing? Writing at times like this was helpful for me.
Taking Tok Tok's advice, I decided to organize my thoughts into writing. During the Korean War, Over 170,000 soldiers died on the South Korean side alone. Combined, 2.5 million civilians lost their lives. Whichever side they were on, too many innocent lives were lost. Even though we've experienced war and saw many who have suffered because of it, why can't we stop fighting? Today, remembering those who fell during the Korean War, I sincerely pray that people have the courage to stop ongoing wars and that others may not be tempted to start wars. I pray that we can all become wiser for a more peaceful world.